Iraq, where we're going to talk to a former independent advisor to the Kurdistan regional government in northern Iraq. He is Reynad Mansour, and he's from the Iraq Institute for Strategic Studies based in Beirut. Mr. Mansour, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Hello.
What is your assessment of the current state of affairs in Iraq right now?
Well, as you can see, it's disintegrated. Obviously, we're in a crisis right now in Iraq. You have different militias governing different areas in Iraq, be it the Shia militias that have come to defend the Shia lands, when they will defend Baghdad, by the way. You have the Kurdish Peshmerga who have, in northern Iraq kind of trying to defend their own territories, the desert territories. And you have the Iraqi army that is disintegrated, as I said, in shambles. And you have a population that is quite, identity confused as well. And so the idea of an Iraq at the moment is up for grabs.
When we look at the various factions and the divisions that you've just alluded to there, why don't you give us your assessment of how the current sort of wave of airstrikes, which you've seen multiplying in the last few weeks, is going to affect things? What will it achieve?
Well, I think definitely the airstrikes will hold the Islamic State back a bit. But I think most analysis at the moment is right to say that it's not enough, the airstrikes. The solution is not in the airstrikes, are not comprehensive enough. So when while the airstrikes will hold them back, as they have in certain areas already done so, you need to sort of couple that with the ground forces, better coordination on the ground, with the locals on the ground, as well as the political situation, which is moving forward.
What shape of force on the ground would work, do you think? How would it be made up, and how would it be led?
Well, just today, the Prime Minister, yesterday, the Prime Minister came out and said to give amnesty to those soldiers that had deserted. And those are the Sunni soldiers. So there is an attempt to bring back the Iraqi security force as such. However, for the time being, it looks like there's going to need to be some coordination between the Peshmerga in the north of Iraq, as well as the Shia militias that are really guided by Ayatollah Sistani coming from the south of Iraq.
And when you look at the neighbouring countries, how are they conducting themselves, and how do you think that kind of combination of cooperation can bring good results or not?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at Iran, Iran has been, probably the most important player in all of this in terms of assuring the security of Iraq. It was Iran that first came to the Kurds when they were under threat. It was Iran that is essentially helping the ISF, the Iraqi forces, rebuild and defending Baghdad. And Iran will defend Iraq, the Quds force that they have. So in terms of that player as a neighbor, it's good. Turkey, on the other hand, there is some controversy around Turkey, whether its role in not supporting the coalition in the air, Turkey's role with relations with ISIS previously, some of the on its border, so Turkey is a little bit more problematic. And Syria, of course, Bashar al-Assad cannot manage that space, and that's the reason why the Islamic State has emerged in the first place, is because you have ungoverned space.
On that point, all the debate in the UK over the last week or so has been about, the distinction between airstrikes over Iraq and over Syria. That debate is still going on. What is your thought on the extent of that action?
Well, I think the conclusions will be different. I think it's easier in Iraq only because in Iraq you have the political developments that's occurring. So you have had a change of regime, and this crisis started because for the last 8 years, Maliki has centralized Baghdad and alienated these actors. So you do have what's the start of a slow political transition. So there is hope. There is hope that the Sunni Iraqis, who are now perhaps more, closely allied to the Islamic State, might move towards the other side if there are successes. Keep in mind that the Islamic State, one of the only reasons that they derive where they get their legitimacy of is proven success. So because they've been so lightning fast and because they've been so successful, they've gained legitimacy from there. So they haven't really shown a loss. They haven't had a loss yet. And whether a loss in the form of airstrikes could, change their narrative, that's another interesting question. In Syria, however, it's a little more problematic because, as we all know, the regime is still intact. The idea of political change is still way more far-fetched than it is in Iraq.
Mr. Mansour, good to you to join us again. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Reynad Mansour there in our Cambridge studio. He's from the Iraq Institute for Strategic Studies based in Beirut. Now, the Foreign Office